On July 1st, 2024, a deadly Category 5 hurricane charged through the Caribbean, claiming lives, livelihoods, and homes. Hurricane Beryl, the second named storm but first hurricane in the 2024 Atlantic season, became the earliest Category 5 ever recorded in the Atlantic. It impacted over 10 Caribbean islands, with at least 2 of them, Carriacou and Union Island, being decimated. I'm Krystal Hoyte, and this is Beryl's Wake, Caribbean communities in the aftermath. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration says Hurricane Beryl's ability to rapidly intensify was due in part to warmer waters. In fact, sea surface temperatures are closer to what would be expected mid-September, the peak of the hurricane season. Within 48 hours, Hurricane Beryl strengthened from a tropical depression to a Category 4 hurricane, with Barbados, the most easterly Caribbean country, in its sights. The island was spared the brunt of Beryl's fury, and while no lives were lost as the hurricane passed to the south, a surging sea driven by storm-force winds resulted in millions of dollars in investment sinking at the British Fisheries Complex.
I have watched 3 boats sink so far since I've been here. You understand? I've watched one break and half. So much destruction is in here right now. So much destruction. This is my livelihood. Pray for our families. There's nothing more we can do. We can't even save the boats. We tried. We were trying for the whole morning to save. We can't. Fishermen were out there trying to help pull them out, trying to get them tied on together. They had to jump off their boats for their safety. Everything is mashed up. Jetty gone, everything. More boats are sinking.
She gave an estimation of the value of the boats.
One of these boats, maybe a wood boat, 160,000, 170,000. That's a wood boat. Imagine fiberglass, millions of dollars, millions of dollars, millions of dollars. And I'm not exaggerating. This is millions and millions of dollars.
Another member of the fishing community, Stephen Bourne, with tears in his eyes, watched as 2 of his boats sank.
It's a blow completely to the whole fishing industry in Barbados, because majority of the fishing boats in the complex who is sinking, mash up, all of them have damages.
When the all-clear was given, Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Motley, and a team of government officials, including the Chief Fisheries Officer, assessed the damage.
This is the most damage that we have seen coming out of this incident, and that is why this hurricane, and that's why I said that the coastal assets and the coastal infrastructure appear to be the damage. I go from here to Highway 7. The Deputy Prime Minister is already working with MTW to mobilize teams to be able to start to clean up the road, because as you would have heard earlier, I beg them not to go in. People who don't need to go on Highway 7, don't go.
100 miles from Barbados, Hurricane Beryl barreled through the southern Grenadines, doing even more damage. It slammed Myro and Canawan, but Union Island's destruction was almost total.
I refer to Union Island as Beryl's Armageddon.
Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. Ralph Gonzalez, said the devastation was unimaginable.
Practically every single house, the roof is gone. Most of them, the wall structures are shattered or severely compromised. The roof and structure of the hospital, the schools, secondary school, primary school, gone. The electricity, physical facilities have been irreparably damaged.
Any loss of life?
In Union, Before this morning, there were 3 persons who died. That's the report that I got. But the commissioner told me this morning that there are 3 bodies partially decomposed who had to be brought up in body bags. They got crushed under the rubble. I don't know if anybody else is there. Terrible situation.
Do you think that enough was done as it relates to preparation and even perhaps evacuation of the Southern Grenadines?
Well, we are doing currently evacuation of persons who would like to leave.
I'm talking
But
about prior.
no. I'm coming to that. It is very difficult to make the best preparations for a Category 5 hurricane. And it was not until fairly late that it was clear that the eye was going to come over Carriacou and then Union Island. So it's quite possible with 2020 vision, hindsight, that some evacuation could have been done. But the logistics of that would have been difficult. How are you going to move 3,000 persons with the number of trips you have to make? The fast ferry carries 200 people. The other vessels, another 200. You know, it would have been Herculean. One of the first things which you have to do, and there's a team right down now in Union, they're going to Myra, and they're going also to Canawan. What do you do with the rubble? You have 1,000 houses in Union. And a lot of them are big houses. And I said, most of them, practically all of them, the roofs are off. But the others, the buildings, you have to knock them down. These islands are too fragile from an environmental standpoint. So you have to move that rubble somewhere else. Where and how? It's a very expensive matter.
I know that it's early days, but if you could give an estimation, how much is this natural disaster costing the citizens?
Oh, it's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars. The costs, I mean, the agriculture this country has been shattered. The bananas, the planting, we have to give production support to the farmers, and we have to provide also income support, because it takes a long time for a tree to grow back. The bananas will grow back and start to bear within 8 to 9 months. The planting's a little longer. But what does the farmer do meanwhile? So we haven't factored in yet the immense erosion of the land, the coastal erosion. These are big ticket items.
When we return, the people of Union Island share their experience. While Prime Minister Gonzalez gave an overview of Hurricane Beryl's impact, the people of Union Island provide details of the traumatic experience and overwhelming loss.
Everything is gone. Everything you can think about is gone. People are homeless, they need food, they need water.
Thousands of Vincentians fled the island, where there was no water, electricity, or telecommunications. The lone warehouse with limited aid was under pressure, and tensions were rising. In Myro, a similar level of devastation and the trauma almost tangible.
It, it, it was a scary experience.
Gillian Alexander Lewis brought to tears as she tried to recount surviving Beryl.
I live here, me and my husband, and when the water started surging, we decided to leave and go to his parents' house to the top. Then we start hearing the galvanize start flying off. They let him go, and then the rafter start shaking like that also was going to just lift off. When it calmed down a bit, we tried to get out to go downstairs by his sister, and there were loads of galvanized by the steps. There were trees there blocking us, so we could not move. Then the wind started again. It was just horrible.
The 39-year-old Vincentian said she's never experienced a hurricane that devastating.
Houses, concrete houses just fall to the ground. It was like something just out of the world, you know? It was just unbelievable.
While no lives were lost on Myro, 4 people were injured, 2 critically. Bryce Wagner, a community leader, talked about what's urgently needed.
We need to get as many people off the island as possible. We haven't had many leave yet. The population, we've got about 360 people. We've got 14 babies. We need to get the elderly off the island, the young moms and the babies first. Right now, we need urgent supplies. We need water. We need tarps. We're going to need construction supplies. A week from now, people are going to forget about this hurricane. They're going to look at another war. We need sheet metal. We need plywood, enough for 67 houses.
He said Myro will rebuild, better, stronger, and more resilient. But perhaps the hardest hit was Carriacou in Grenada. Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell said it was flattened within half an hour.
I mean, it's devastating. There's no other way to describe it. Massive physical destruction of homes, government buildings, private commercial properties, significant destruction of agriculture. In the case of Carriacou and PT Martinique, fishing is a way of life. So there's significant damage to boats, to jetties, the Turtle Bay infrastructure. So really, it's just from a physical destruction point of view, it's not something you'd want to wish on your worst enemy. And then obviously, have to deal with the humanitarian crisis as a result. No homes, no schools, no water, no power, no food, no clothing. So it's truly been a devastating blow.
I know that it's early days for the government, but if you can give an estimation in terms of the cost of this natural disaster and the government's fiscal position.
It's going to be dreadful because if we take Carriacou alone, let's do simple math. If you had to rebuild 800 or 1,000 homes and build it so that at least it's decent and can perhaps withstand future storms, you probably, and I'm saying here a very small, modest home, you probably will have to spend 250,000 EC dollars. So if you take the lower figure, 200,000, and you have to build 1,000 homes, that's $200 million. That's just the home. That's just the structure. We're not talking furnishing it, putting back, the refrigerator or the washing machine. We are talking here about significant financial loss and running into the hundreds of millions of dollars.
You mentioned rebuilding, and with the majority of the housing stock, particularly in Carriacou and Petite Martinique, either being damaged or completely destroyed, is the conversation as it relates to building with more resilience in mind center as you think about rebuilding?
No, absolutely, that's central. As much as we want to help people get a roof over their heads quickly, we can't do it in the same manner that it was done before. So absolutely, I think just from a design point of view, from a construction materials point of view, and also looking at examples, places further north like the Cayman Islands, which has sort of been in the path of hurricanes almost annually. They've made adjustments to their building code, particularly the roofing. So you see there's a lot of concrete roofs and those kinds of things. So we're going to have to look at some of that. We are going to have to look at modular homes to see how, once they can withstand hurricane force winds, how we perhaps deploy some of this, because it's not just rebuilding. We have to rebuild quickly, and then we have to build with resilience in mind. So things like making sure the homes perhaps are solar powered, and the possibility of having solar panels that can be removed, for instance, ahead of the storm, and stored, so that if you survive, then you can put it back on, and then you can have power and self-generate, so that you know, that sort of resilience. Water systems, so that we can do the rainwater harvesting and make sure we have water tanks, hopefully, that can withstand, category 4 and 5 storms. So again, you're not dependent on the central water system for a prolonged period of time, or if that is disrupted, then you have a backup power source. Carriacou actually has some indigenous, what I would call inbuilt resilience. One of the things that they're very good at is, in fact, rainwater harvesting. So, for example, in Petit Martinique, a lot of the people do have cisterns as well as Carriacou, so that even though the hurricane has happened, while they may not have drinking water, they do have water for sanitation and so on, because they sort of built in from just local knowledge and experience.
And as it relates to Grand Lake?
Absolutely. We're going to have to put some of these power lines underground. It's going to be expensive initially, but when you think the costs, when you count the cost now, what is happening, we have no choice. And Grand Lake for the last 40 years has been self-insured because the insurance companies were not prepared to insure the transmission and distribution system. So we had it was legislated that it had to put aside 5% of its pre-tax profits every year as an insurance fund. Luckily, it's done so we do have some cash. But the truth is, this is the start of the hurricane season. If we were to, in fact, spend all of this money in the restoration and you get hit with a hurricane next year, you don't have the fund.
When we return, Grenadians recount their experience and the significant loss to farmers.
It was terrible. We couldn't come out. The rain started falling, the wind started blowing, and here comes the roof fall right inside the house. And we try again to go, couldn't make it.
You were stranded in the house.
I couldn't make a move. It was a very sad day. I experienced Janet. I was 14 years old, but this was the worst. And I still want to say thank you, Jehovah, for giving us life.
Monica McLawrence, as she recounted surviving Hurricane Beryl. Further south in Carriacou, an emotional godson Lendor showed me what's left of his family home. The fisherman by trade lost his home, his boat, and his business.
When you lose your home, you lose everything, almost everything. I mean, your life, you have life so you could rebuild. But the business is what had us going to maintain, and that is gone as well. So I don't know. We just have to, brush ourselves up and start again. It wouldn't be easy, but. And internationally, all the help we could get, I think we needed it. And that's the entire island, Carriacou and Petit Martinique.
The farmers on the island were distraught as many of their livestock were dead or missing.
And I had fowl, pig, goat, sheep, and majority all things die, gone. The only 3 more goats I have remain out of 38. And I didn't see the rest of I see none of the sheep. I have 18 sheep and none. No fowls. House gone, everything.
That's farmer Wilfred Allard, who said the financial loss is significant.
$1,000. Animal alone was about 40,000. Plus the house, fencing, pen, everything gone. Right back to zero. Because now most farmers don't have no pen, they have no fencing, they have no grazing for the animals, so it's from zero.
When we return, we hear from one of Beryl's victims, now forced to live in a shelter. In both Grenada and St. Vincent, thousands sought refuge in shelters, and with no homes to return to, many remained there long after Beryl had passed. Jillenise Pompey was one of them. The mother of 3 said her home was destroyed by the hurricane.
If it's in the night, me and the kids, them go dead inside the house. Because when I dey in the house, I see the plywood, the first part of the plywood just raise off. So I try to hold it. I just grab a book bag, make sure I get his pampers, his wipes, two outfits, and then I run up my mom. And this boy so smart, you know, he lay down just like this and hung me up tight, he don't even raise up the head. And I creep up my mommy house, and they watching my house getting blown away.
Unsure of her next steps, she was intent on making the best of the terrible situation.
You ain't comfortable, but you have to make yourself comfortable because you do, at the time you don't have nowhere. So we make this our home for now until further notice.
Pompey said she was unable to salvage anything. She left with nothing but the clothes on her back.
So right now I'm in need of everything. Baby want pampers and stuff like that.
Coming up, regional and international agencies respond to impacted countries. Stay with us. Within 48 hours, a number of regional and international agencies were on the ground in both Grenada and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, assessing the damage and providing assistance. The Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, CDEMA, deployed its Rapid Needs Assessment Team.
As a part of this rapid needs assessment team, we have on the ground social sector specialists, we have structural engineers, we have telecommunication specialists, we have agricultural specialists, and we also have individuals from WASH and the health as well to help us conduct these rapid assessments on the ground. We also have, as a part of the RNAT team, the IOM on the ground, which is assisting with the shelter situation and the shelter management and assessment. Of course, these assessments will give us a better rapid analysis of the situation on the ground to help us to be able to charter the response operation tailored to suit the needs and to support the early recovery efforts.
Also on the ground was the World Food Programme. Country Director for the Caribbean, Brian Brogart, spoke about their work.
What we're really focused on in this response is supporting governments, supporting CDEMA and regional bodies to enable their response and to address any gaps that arise, be those resource gaps or any technical skills that we can provide to accelerate the delivery of assistance to people who have been affected by Hurricane Beryl. And as the World Food Programme, we're also trying to mobilize resources to provide food and cash assistance to people in need. So the Barbadian Defence Forces have helped us to begin kitting rations from Massey, the retailer, into packs that we can then deliver that are easy to transport to people's homes. And there's also a network of civil society volunteers who mobilized and volunteered to support that effort.
In a matter of days, the Barbados Coast Guard also arrived, bringing critical aid and additional resources.
We brought some water, some Pampers, and some wipes so far. On board we have about 36 persons from the regional security system to assist with the humanitarian disaster relief management here in Union Island.
Lieutenant Commander Dorian Davis, the director of the CDRU, explained their primary objectives.
Our main purpose here is to be able to bring relief to the persons of Union Island. Our job here is to manage the resources, the aid that is coming to the island, and be able to distribute it along with to the natives of the island to be able to bring some relief to them.
Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell expressed his gratitude to the various agencies.
Many of them were on the island within 24 hours. Of the passage of Hurricane Beryl. So we are really, really appreciative of the partnership, of the solidarity, of the support, not just in terms of material things, but in terms of advocacy and in terms of bringing attention to our plight. So a profound appreciation. They've bought a whole range of things, obviously starting with sort of the well-known humanitarian relief in terms of food supplies, hygiene, sanitation kits, tarpaulin, just food in general. On a bilateral level, in some cases, financing contributions, direct financial contributions. Some of our colleagues in the region, Dominica, Anguilla, have sent financial support. Guyana, Trinidad have sent up actual supplies from foodstuff to tarpaulins to diesel to soldiers to building materials. So the support has been tremendous in the case of Samaritan's Purse and so on. They've used the helicopters to be able to ferry food and water, desalination plants, and so field hospitals. So the support has been overwhelming. I think for us, we will certainly continue to need food supplies relief because, as I said, in the case of Carriacou, we are likely to. There's no agriculture. A lot of the livestock is likely to, there's a significant risk of them perishing if we are not able to move them off or come up with a solution that could salvage them, because many of them are roaming the streets, obviously, as a result of what has happened. So water supplies, I think food, sanitation, toiletries is going to remain a priority. Tarpaulins are going to remain a priority. Generators still a priority. But obviously, as we get into the rebuilding phase, actual construction materials of all sorts is going to be needed, and obviously resilient type construction materials, because we have to make sure that we inbuild that resilience once we start rebuilding.
A week after the hurricane passed, regional leaders visited the hardest hit areas for a first-hand appreciation of the immediate needs and the extent of the damage. The delegation included Prime Ministers of Dominica, St. Lucia, and St. Kitts and Nevis. The Caribbean leaders said small island developing states continue to be on the front line of natural disasters.
The next decade for the Caribbean is going to be devastating. This will become a reality. It is a hard fact to face, but it's a fact that we must face. This year, we are being hit by category 4, 5 early in the season. Next year, it's going to be basically the same in terms of the risk, because we did not achieve keeping the temperature below 1.5. The latest report is that we have gone above 1.5, meaning the temperature compared to the pre-industrial age is now 1.5 degrees higher. For us in the Caribbean, that means droughts, irregular rainfall, lack of water, stronger storms, stronger hurricanes. It means that our very way of life is at risk. But I want to say that the Caribbean people, we are a resilient people.
Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Philip Pierre, as well as Prime Minister of Dominica, Roosevelt Scarrett, stressed that climate action is needed.
Climate change is real, and the larger countries have to come to the fore. The larger countries have to keep their promises at adaptation so we could get to mitigation. It's a serious situation. Lives, not only lives are at threat, but livelihoods are at threat.
We are faced with an existential threat with hurricanes and storms. I mean, just earlier this year, Grenada suffered dramatically where drought was concerned, which caused a serious water scarcity issue. And then weeks later, you're faced with this Category 3, Category 4 hurricane. Of course, the devastation is dramatic, and it's going to cost a lot of money to rebuild infrastructure. And elementary, sometimes we look at the infrastructure, but sometimes the folks don't pay attention to people's livelihoods and the impact it will have on people for many years to come.
In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Prime Minister Gonzalez said times are changing and there is a need for financing, not just for loss and damage, but for climate adaptation as well.
When I was a boy, admittedly in a different century, and I know you'll smile at that, because I was born just after the Second World War. When I was at primary school, there was a ditty which we were taught. June too soon, July stand by, August come it must, September remember, October it's all over. Well, June is now not too soon. And you don't stand by for July, you get a big Cat 5. And October, it's not all over, because we had a storm, not a hurricane, in 2013 in December. Floods and so forth, landslides, heavy rains, some wind, killed 9 persons and caused immense damage. Damage and loss amounting to about $175 million US. That's just that, you know. It's an incredible amount of damage which these hurricanes and storms do cause, and we have to repeat it over and over that we don't contribute to these where these climate change, the changes in the climate, but we're on the front line. And unfortunately, the financial institutions are not fit for purpose to address these questions.
You spoke about the international community. What do you say to the international community that say that perhaps the climate crisis, the climate change is not real, or who refuse to mobilize on the climate crisis?
Well, the first question, if somebody is denying climate change, I can't do anything about you because the scientific evidence is before us. So I leave the scientists to argue with those deniers. I accept the science. The science is not just persuasive, it's compelling and conclusive. Now, the major emitters, historically and in the contemporary period, because you'll have the United States would tell you, oh, we are not currently the major emitter. China is, all this. But what about historically? Because all that is there, which has caused global warming. And pledges are made at the Conference of Parties within the United Nations framework on the climate change, the Convention on Climate Change. But we don't see the realization of these pledges. At the last meeting of COP in the United Arab Emirates, this damage and loss fund has been just set up the year before at Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. It was set up without any money, but a fund without any money is an oxymoron. So then you set it up 1 year later. But the pledges to it amount to about $700 million. Now, that couldn't take care of Maria in Dominica in 2017. But in any event, damage and loss is for after you have had damage and loss. What about monies for preparing before, for climate change adaptation, for climate change mitigation? We don't see the monies for those.
It's a cause championed by Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Amor Motley.
We cannot continue to put the interests of a few before the lives of many. And if time is not on our side, what must we do? The truth is, we have made some progress. 2 years ago, the International Monetary Fund did not have a mechanism to focus on cause of the problems that led to massive macroeconomic instability. We now have the establishment of the Resilience and Sustainability Trust that for the first time will make funds available to middle-income countries that are vulnerable. 20-year money with a 10.5-year moratorium. A year ago, the president of the World Bank was questioning whether there was a climate crisis. Today, we have a World Bank that for the first time acknowledges that there should be debt clauses that are suspended, debt pause clauses as they call it. Our battle now is to ensure that those debt pause clauses are not just for future instruments, but for existing instruments. If not, it will not help many. So we have made progress, but there is still much to be done. The issues of debt sustainability cannot be left on the sidelines, particularly with the number of countries, more than 60 countries facing debt row today as we speak because of the polycrises. Countries being forced to choose between development and building of resilience to fight climate.
In the absence of adequate funding for climate adaptation and mitigation, insurance remains a key part of the short-term solution. In this regard, the region is being advised to increase their insurance coverage amid predictions of more frequent and intense weather systems. It's coming from the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility. Chief Executive Officer Isaac Anthony has made the call as the company prepares to make 10 payouts under Hurricane Beryl. totaling over 75 million US dollars. Grenada will receive the largest payout in history, a sum of 45 million US dollars. Krystal says the payout is to help close the protection gap and allow Grenada to respond quickly to its most pressing needs.
Most countries are still well below where they ought to be in terms of coverage. Krystal, as an insurance company, and based on the business plan that would have been approved by our regulator, we are able to offer insurance coverage of up to $150 million per country per peril. I am pleased to announce the following payouts to the government of Grenada. So specifically to the government has three policies with Krystal. One for tropical cyclone, which covers the perils of wind and storm surge, and for that the government will receive an amount of 42.4 million United States dollars, again within 14 days of the event. The government has also covered for a product called COAS, which is intended to support the fishery sector and most specifically the fisher folks. And again, it covers wind, storm surge, rainfall, as well as high waves. And for that, the government will receive an amount of 1.067 million US dollars. The government is also covered for excess rainfall and of course covering heavy rainfall, and a smaller payout will be received in the amount of $548,850, making a total of about 44 million United States dollars, or approximately 118 million Eastern Caribbean dollars.
As Beryl moved on to wreak havoc in Venezuela, Mexico, and Texas, the affected Caribbean countries were left to pick up the pieces, to recover, restore, and rebuild. Considering it was the first hurricane for what is predicted to be an above-normal season, the forecast is cause for concern for Caribbean people. I'm Krystal Hoyte. Thank you for joining me.